about what is test and the concept of standardization of test. Now before we start what is test, let's understand some of the questions. Which university should I join? Can I be very confident when I am standing in a public to speak? So these kinds of questions, they require behavioral analysis. And this behavior varies from person to person and within the same person or among the same person from time to time. So I can say at one point of time I am very comfortable with my public speaking. At other point of time I might feel kind of nervous when I am in public. So these are the behavioral aspect that we need to understand. And what test does is basically understands your behavior in terms of social context. So if I say I am trying to understand a particular phenomena, there can be various ways of doing that. So for any test to be successful, what is required is the test should be objective in nature. That means there should be something that is done for the test which helps make it neutral. So this test should be neutral or should not include any behavioral aspect or should not be varied by any specific behavioral phenomena. Now when we talk about tests, there are various limitations of the test. First is, test tries to measure something. So there is two things, what it intends to measure and what it actually measures. There is a huge gap of difference between the two, what it intends to measure and what it actually measures. So when we talk about these two things and the gap between that is one of the major limitations of the test. Now, test is also affected by cultural barriers and language barriers. So culture and language are two things that also affect the test. Now, for any test to be successful, it's very important that the test is standardized. What does standardized mean? If there are two persons appearing for the test, I should make it sure that both of them get the same type of questions or the questions with same level of difficulty. Supposedly there is person A and person B. I am giving the two persons a test for 1 hour. For the first person I am giving 100 questions and for the second person I am giving 50 questions to solve. So can I say these two tests are standardized? These two tests cannot be standardized because the time taken for B to solve the question would be double as compared to A. So I cannot judge relatively the performance of A and B. So what is important to understand here is, for any test to be successful, we need to standardize the test. And for a test to standardize, there are few things that we must be very sure of. First is, we should administer the questions under same circumstances. So the same examination hall, same invigilators, same settings, without noise or without disturbance. Then the question should be same or at least similar. It should not be that one person is given a kind of very easy questions and the other person is given very kind of hard questions. The next is, the score should be consistent or objective. So as I explained previously, it's very important for the scores to be consistent and objective. And finally, what is very important is, you are trying to measure relative performance here and not the absolute performance. So if I say absolutely in 1 hour, A is solving 100 questions. Okay. So might be absolutely A is scoring, say that's 80% in this test. Okay. So absolute performance is independent, but if I am saying B is solving 50 questions only, but B is scoring 95%, I cannot compare these two results. So to compare a set of results, there is a kind of relative performance how A is doing relative to B or B is doing relative to A. So that can only be measured when a test is properly standardized. Now this standardization of tests is applied to most of the studies, be it social sciences, be it humanities, or be it physical sciences or life sciences. Now under these tests, I try to measure three things. Those are reliability, validity, and norms. And based on these three things, I try to decide whether a test is usable or not. So the next thing I would try to understand here is, based on these three things, I would try to judge the usability of the test. Now a test can be of various types. I can have a multiple choice question, I can have true false questions, I can have fill in the blanks questions, there can be one line questions, short answer, essay type, or any other form of test. Now when you are trying to compare, for example, if I say board examinations, you have short answers and long answer questions. For any competitive examinations, you have multiple choice or fill in the blanks type question. So these are the various tests that are standardized to judge the level of, say, grade 10 or class 10 students for board examinations, or pre-medical or pre-engineering examinations. They are trying to judge or standardize the test for all the students who are appearing with class 12th or after class 12th. Okay. So with this we understand what is exactly standardization. Now I here have a very simple demonstration to help you understand the standardization of a test. There are two professors, Ms. Davy and Mr. Joy, and they have two students, Tom and Jerry. So Jerry is a student of Mr. Joy and Tom is a student of Ms. Davy. Now, Tom is one of the very favorite students of Ms. Davy. What happens before the examination is, Ms. Davy tells Tom most of the questions that are asked in the examination, that would be asked in the examination, and Jerry is totally unaware of the set of questions. Now when Tom and Jerry are supposed to write this examination, will we consider this as a standardized test? The answer would be no. In the next case, let's say Tom is very good at, say, mathematics, okay? And the paper is being designed by Miss Davy, who considers Tom as one of the favorite candidates. And in the question paper, she puts more than 80% questions which are from mathematics, because she knows mathematics is a favorite subject of Tom. Now when Tom and Jerry are again going to appear for the examination, will that results be considered as standardized? The obvious answer here could be no. We cannot say that the results of Tom and Jerry would be standardized, because there is something that you are trying to give preference to Tom. Because he is interested in mathematics and there are a lot of questions in mathematics, it is very obvious that he would score good as compared to Jerry. Now in the third circumstances, I can say the question paper for Tom and Jerry is a bit different. Tom is given all set of easy questions as compared to Jerry. So again, Tom would be able to solve those questions very quickly, and most of the questions, the probability to be correct is high. So Tom would again score more than Jerry, but in this case again I cannot say the test is standardized. So with this we can understand that for any test to be standardized, it's very important that the test is objective, there is no biasness related to subject, related to language, related to difficulty of question, related to the time duration given or the number of questions given. Okay, so first is objectivity, that is very important for the test. And now again, the second is the circumstances. Tom is asked to give an examination in a very well ventilated and aerated room, while Jerry is asked to give an examination in a closed room, which is a like a suffocating room. So the performance of Tom and Jerry would definitely be different despite the paper being the same, the level of questions and the difficulty being the same. So that is again one of the criteria that we need to consider while understanding what, why and how we require the standardization to be done. So this gives you a brief idea on why we require test and its standardization and what would happen if a proper standardization for the test is not done. If a proper standardization for the test is not done, we cannot say that we are comparing the two results and the two results would be similar. Now these are the three parts or the three basic elements that we need to have in order for the test to be standardized. Now, reliability, validity and norms. Let's discuss these briefly. Reliability means that if I am appearing for this test today, say 26 June 2015, I appear for the same test again on 26 July 2015 and then 26 December 2015 and then 26th June again 2016. So what would happen here is my results over the time would remain consistent. I am not saying same here, I am saying the result should be consistent. That means if I am performing well in sciences, I should continue to do well in sciences. If I am not performing good at English, I won't be performing good at English. There can be improvement, but that improvement cannot be highly significant. So there is a kind of consistency that is maintained on the same test over a time frame. Now again in this case, if I say June to July, I can say there can be very less variations. But if I say 26 June 2015 to 26 June 2016, I can consider the level of variation to be much higher as compared to 2015. Since I have 1 year in hand, there is probability that I can improve a lot in science or I can improve a lot in English. But that depends again on the time duration that you are putting in. But there obviously needs to be a consistency. So that is the important key for a test to be reliable. The next is validity. Now let's move on to reliability first. So as I said, there should be repeatability. So if I am doing the same test again and again, so I am doing this test in 1 month, 1 week or 1 year, then I am comparing the scores for the two time durations. That means, and if those scores are high, that means the reliability of the test is high. And again, as we already discussed, the score should be consistent. There cannot be huge fluctuations in the result. The next is validity. Validity means how valid a proposition is. So for anything to be valid, it's very important it does what it is supposed to do. For example, if I am testing intelligence on a set of 50 students and I am giving them a paper for, say, solving questions based on life sciences or humanities, I cannot judge the level of IQ. But on the other hand, if I am giving questions on general aptitude or mental ability, I can judge IQ scores for those. So that means this is a kind of valid proposition, but this is an invalid proposition. conversation. So validity means I am trying to measure what I am supposed to measure. So it's very important that I measure what I am supposed to measure. Then again, validity is subjective in nature. There can be someone who says a person who is good at life sciences should have a good IQ. Okay. There can be other person who can say being good at life sciences does not mean that the person has a good IQ or good intelligence. So there is something that is subjective here, and this subjectivity matters in case of validity but not in case of reliability. So it can be based on your individual experiences or your empirical or objective studies. The next is norms. Now when I am doing any test, I try to put that test with others and see and compare the results. For example, there is one person on the IQ score who is scoring, say, let's 80%, and another 50 persons who are scoring an IQ of 20%. That means there is a kind of deviation in this IQ test. Either this IQ test does not meets the norms that are standardized. So norms basically means we can explain this by means of a normal probability curve or a normal distribution curve, generalizing that most of the people would fall in a range of one standard deviation, that is the average variation from the mean. So here the average variation from the mean is plus minus 1 SD, and around 64% of the people fall in this range. Plus minus 2 standard deviation, around 95% of the people fall in this range, and plus minus 3 standard deviation, around 99% of the population should fall in this range. So when I am comparing the results with other students or other children, I can say most of the students would fall in this range, which would be a variation. If I am taking the units grams here, I could say the variation should be from 510 to 550. Most of the weight should fall under this limit, and there can be very less values which are falling on the extremes. So I can say the graph, in simple language, if I say the graph is going this way, it means it is not meeting the standardization. But if the graph goes this way, I can say it meets the standardization norms. The only reason being, here you have very less people who are following this general set of criteria, and if this is true, I cannot say that test can be generalized for a huge group of population, and I cannot compare a huge set of population based on that group. So this is how we understand norms. So this was the basic lecture on the standardization of tests, where we consider three basic things, that is reliability. We are repeating the same test again and again, and we are seeing if there is consistently high score, that means the reliability is good. Under validity, we are trying to understand, we are measuring what we are supposed to measure. So a test of IQ cannot measure the mechanical input of someone. Okay. So there should be a kind of match between what you are measuring and what you should measure or what you are supposed to measure. So that is validity. And finally, norms. We are generalizing those based on our findings. We are generalizing some criteria, and most set of people should fall into that criteria so that we can compare the results with others easily. Once you are done with reliability, validity and norms, you decide whether a test is usable or not, and once you finalize the test is usable, you consider that as a standardized test, and those standardized tests nowadays are also based on computers. So you call those computer adaptive tests. Examinations like GMAT, GRE, SAT, ACT are considered as computer adaptive tests, and these are another form or variant of a standardized test. In the next class, we will be talking about the various types of reliability. You can subscribe to Exam Base channel for further updates. Till then, have a good day.